Welcome to the Marketing Made Great podcast. In each episode, we'll be sharing with you the tips, tricks, and techniques from the top sales and marketing experts from around the globe that will make marketing simple for your business. Here's your host, Mark Traeger.
This week's guest, Caroline Dunn, will give us a very interesting perspective on voice as the next big frontier in marketing. Our conversation went so well that we actually broke it up into 2 episodes. Well, here's part 1 of my conversation with Caroline Dunn. Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to another edition of the Marketing Made Great podcast. I got to tell you, I'm pretty excited about this episode because we've got Caroline Dunn here. And Caroline, before I start going into your intro, why don't you tell us who you are and a little bit about your background?
Hello, everybody. My name is Caroline Dunn. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today. Thrilled to be here. Let's see, my background. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I went to Georgia Tech to study electrical engineering because I love TV and VCR repair. I really honestly thought that was going to be my career. I was going to have this great career. Yes. And now I know how to change out all the breakers in my home. Thank you. Yes. So I spent 6 years studying electrical engineering, came out with a bachelor's and a master's degree of electrical engineering, and then pivoted my career immediately upon graduation, sadly. And now I'm in marketing. I ended up doing an MBA in marketing, and my last role was head of marketing for a software company. And now I'm working on the next great frontier, which is developing for voice.
Developing for voice. Well, I've known you for a little while, and everything that I've seen you speak on and everything, I haven't seen you get quite as excited as about voice. So I know you're one of the early adopters, so kind of give us a little background as to what drew your attention to voice as possibly the next frontier for marketing.
2016, I start working with this guy named Steve Youngblood. You know Steve Youngblood, right? Oh, who doesn't know Steve Youngblood? and one day he brings into work his Alexa. And I had never seen one, never really even heard of one up until that point. He says, "Okay, Caroline, have fun, play with it." First thing I said to it was, "Alexa, order a 21-inch monitor." And 2 days later, at his house, he received a 21-inch monitor.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, that is me. That's classic Caroline Dunn. I am the prankster. I am the jokester.
Good to know.
Yeah, do not leave me alone with your credit card or really any or you're just even your email open.
I'll turn my Alexa on.
I am that. I'm that person.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, cool! It worked. Oh, this thing actually works." And so that was my very first interaction with Alexa.
Okay.
And I was, number one, really impressed that it worked. And then number 2, I was like, "Where's the screen? What happened?" And I started thinking about voice, and I started realizing that voice is so native to us. It's it's the first thing you learn how to speak and how to listen before you learn how to read and write, before you see that computer screen. And
very true.
Even going back further in my career, I used to be product marketing owner of all the mobile products at CBeyond over a decade ago. This is a while back ago. And I got some really interesting feedback one day. I had a client who, at that point it was the BlackBerry era, right? And the sales team was comped. They were brainwashed basically into selling BlackBerries. Okay, that was their whole goal in life. Okay, and at that point, smartphone adoption was less than 10%. Okay, but they were, because of the comp structure, they were going to sell every BlackBerry they possibly could.
Sure.
And I got some interesting feedback from a prospect one day who wanted to speak to me, the product owner, one-on-one. I was like, okay, great, sure. I love listening to really, it's a learning opportunity on my end to get to speak to a prospect.
Absolutely.
And so this was just a really raw conversation I had with him. Really, it was. He said, "Caroline, I've got to be totally honest with you. I'm old." I'm like, okay, great. Are you going to buy BlackBerry or not? I mean, I really didn't know where he was going with this. He goes, "Caroline, the truth is, I cannot read my emails on my BlackBerry because my eyesight is so terrible.
My goodness.
So he's like, I'm sold on that I need to have a mobile way of getting to my emails. Okay, this is better than sitting at my desk all day waiting for an email to come in, right? But I literally cannot see. I cannot read because my eyesight is so bad. He's like, Caroline, can you please make it read my emails to me? How great would it be if I was just in the car and I had my phone in my car, and as a new email came in, it just read it to me.
Sure.
And that was such an aha moment in my life at that point. I was like, really? I was
So
much.
this was how long ago?
This is over a decade ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. So voice kind of got planted then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So really, 2016 is when I saw an actual good implementation of it. But a decade before that is when I actually saw the need.
Okay.
So we've been needing this for a really long time.
Okay.
And the irony is Alexa recently, I would say within the last 2 months, has released in the U.S. the ability for you to, Alexa, just read out your emails to you.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So that technology is roughly a decade old, but now it's making its debut or bringing to the light of day these kinds of things. Well, don't you think the voice kind of makes life a little more frictionless in the sense that, I'll give you a good example. March Madness just happened, and there was a big argument about, was Duke better or was Virginia better? And instead of Googling it like you normally would, wouldn't it have been easier to say, Alexa, which is a better team? Maybe getting her opinion.
Well, she does offer her opinion before every big event. For SAG Awards, if you had said good morning on the morning of the SAG Awards, it would have said, ask me who my picks are for SAG Awards. She does that for every single event.
Oh, wow.
On the day of the event.
Good to know.
Yeah, so if you do, Alexa, say good morning, that's something that happens. I think voice is more interactive, and it's a discussion. So if you're, I think it's, when we talk about voice, we're talking, when we talk about NCAA tournament, we're talking to each other, humans to human interaction. Nothing is ever going to surpass that. That's always going to be number one. And, I see a lot of chat boards, where people are typing in, what their thoughts on, and that's great and everything. And you can sit there and read it, but isn't it better just to sit around with your friends with some beers and just talk about it?
Well, that's true, but now you and I are more seasoned professionals, okay? But I read an interesting article recently that Generation Z, thank God we're at the end of the alphabet, which is that 22 and under class, the novel thing for them to do now is get their smartphone out and actually call one of their friends and have a conversation.
Everything comes full circle. Isn't that how we started with mobile phones? The first phone I got, that's the only thing it could do.
Right.
I had to actually talk to somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Now with the texting and all that you can disappear from it. But so voice has kind of evolved a little bit over those years. But what was that aha moment in 2016? Besides just ordering the monitor, that made you want to go, maybe there's something here for marketing? And where do you see that voice activation being utilized in marketing?
Honestly, as a marketer, you're always looking for that next killer app, right? And
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, just being really raw with you today, you're looking at you're looking to jump on a bandwagon. Right? We're all bandwagon jumpers. Let's just admit it. I am one for sure. It's not that Alexa was a very compelling, something that had existed for a long time, but come into a really practical application or a really good implementation of it. Right. When you look at the iPhone, we knew how to do apps. We knew how to do apps before then. We knew how to do all of the functions of the app of the iPhone we had in a Windows phone before that. We just didn't have it in a good UI. And that was the difference with Alexa. It was a better UI, or should I say voice experience, than voice technologies existed for years. It was just really bad.
Right.
And then we finally got something that was good. So that's number one, that it was actually a good product.
Right. The user interface.
The user interface could actually understand the words coming out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That was tough. That was number one. It was a good product. Number two, as a bandwagon jumper, you're looking at where are people spending their money in advertising too. I also looked at Amazon, and that was the beginning of them spending a ton of money on advertising. These products don't sell themselves. I'm sorry to say that. When as marketers, we're going to our bosses and beg, borrowing, stealing for budget every day. And our marketing budgets are getting smaller every day because our bosses are saying, well, social media is free. This is free. That's free. I'm sorry. The best things in life might be free, but advertising is not, and getting your message out there is not free.
Sure. No, I understand. So one of the things I've always heard is you either create the wave, ride the wave, or get crushed by the wave. Okay. So this to me is that next big wave that's coming. And from what I've seen and heard you many times speak about, I think you're one of those that are out there creating the wave. So for us like me that are trying to catch up or at least grab a hold of the wave, where do you see the practical applications being utilized in marketing? I know in Alexa and in Google Home, give you an example. The thing that blew my mind was Burger King did an ad. They only had 15 seconds, and there was a little guy behind the counter, and he said, only got 15 seconds, and called the camera in close and said, Google Home, define a Whopper. And it actually activated over 100,000 Google Home devices and started reading the Wikipedia definition of what a Whopper was. Okay, that's where it got my attention, that a simple voice command through a television set. Now, they've fixed all this. You can't do that anymore. But doing something like that, that's powerful by simply just using a voice command.
Well, but no, we as marketers, we need to take a step back from that.
Okay.
And think through how much money did they spend to shoot that commercial.
Right.
And how much money did they spend to buy that airtime.
Right.
And how many airtimes did they buy? That commercial didn't run once.
Right.
It probably ran more than once.
Understood.
Yeah. So they poured a ton of money into pushing that wave forward.
Right.
Yes. Amazon this is their company strategy at this point.
Right.
They have poured all of their advertising, 99% of their advertising dollars. But to go into where I think that this plays, I think that I think there are two main big use cases for Alexa. Okay. So, or voice in general. Okay. So one is I was part of that whole mobile wave.
Right.
Okay. Back in the day, I saw mobile go from 1% smartphones to 100% smartphones to 100% adoption rate. You know, we have more mobile lines than there are humans on this earth now. Okay. But I remember when it was 1%.
Right.
Okay. And I rode that wave for all it was worth.
Sure.
Okay. And that was great. That was great for my career. I had a great career. Thank you. Okay. Based on mobile. So, and I saw, you know, and yeah, there were at the beginning when I was doing mobile, there were a lot of naysayers. Oh yeah. I don't want somebody calling me while I'm out shopping. You know, I don't want this. I don't need a mobile phone. I don't need to read my emails. Okay, how many people? They're clearly in the minority now.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, when's the last time you were more than 5 feet away from a smart device?
I was in tears.
Okay, now wait a minute.
I was probably having I was probably, where's my phone? Oh my goodness,
So therapy is part of your.
So I rode that mobile thing. So now I see voice going the same way as mobile.
Okay.
What was the magic? What was that watershed moment for mobile? We did BlackBerries. That got us up to 10%. Okay.
Right.
That was great. All right. But the turning point was the release of the iPhone. What was so special about the iPhone? Looking back, it's a very simple answer. They had the best UI, and they had something called the App Store, and they had these third-party developers that made the phone do new and exciting things they hadn't considered previously.
Sure.
Okay, so I think that for Amazon, that's their strategy. They put a ton of money into it. They're evangelizing that. They've paid evangelists to go do that.
Sure.
And now they've got, 30,000, 50,000 skills.
Right.
So they're now going to make a Remember that commercial? There's an app for that. They are now working on there's a skill for that.
Oh, wow.
Commercial.
Okay.
Well, I'm making a prediction. Okay. This is
All
marketing made great, right?
Okay.
So I'm making
All
a prediction. They're going to come up with that same commercial if they haven't already, right?
All right. So we've been talking about Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give credit to a couple of other people. Google, and maybe just a small teeny tiny bit to Apple.
Siri.
Siri.
Okay.
So where does Google and Siri play in any of this, or do they at all?
Let's talk about the second use case. The second use case is smart home.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that blows my mind. This whole smartphone thing, smart home aspect of it, because it creates accessibility for people. Okay. If you are in a wheelchair at home and you need to go roll over to the light switch to turn it off, what would you rather do? Say, Google Home or Alexa, voice, okay, turn off my light bulb. And it's not new technology. We've had the clapper since before I was born.
I was just going to say.
This is the same thing.
I grew up with the clapper,
This is the same thing as a clapper, except that, that there are different claps you could do instead of just one clap and one light switch. Now you can wire up every light switch, every lamp in your home to turn on and off at will.
Right. And with the new generation of Apple operating system, Siri can now, you can tell it something simple like, Siri, heading home. It will send a text to your wife. It will turn on the crock pot. It will adjust the light, adjust the heat, everything, all by a simple one voice command.
Yes. And
That's
you can
pretty amazing.
And you can do the same thing with the Alexa app on your phone or the Google Home app on your phone.
Exactly.
To do that. Yeah. So, but an hour before I used to live in a big house in Alpharetta, and it would take like an hour to cool it down. So, an hour before I'd leave, there was something I set up. This is back in the day, before voice, but there was something I'd say, it was an app on my phone, and I would hit it, and it would turn on all the lights, and it would start cooling my house.
Right.
So that it would be cool by the time I got home.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this isn't new technology. It's the implementation of it that makes the difference. It's much easier to set up one of these smart home devices with Alexa than Zigbee and Z-Wave. Those existed, 20 years ago?
Yep.
I went through the whole Z-Wave fad, and I did set up everything. You needed a master's degree in electrical engineering to set up that Z-Wave thing, quite honestly. Sure. And I think I kind of did a rain dance in there somewhere to get that Z-Wave thing to work. I mean, there was some sort of I understand. But now the way they've put it together is anybody can do it.
Right.
The app walks you through it, and next thing you know, you're running out of names to call all your light switches. That's the hardest part now.
Okay, so let's go back to the monitor thing. All right, I want to give you something to think about. So you didn't give it a brand name. You just said, I want a 21-inch monitor.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so somebody had to make the pick on the brand. So what I see is the potential. Let's use chocolate chip cookies because I like chocolate chip cookies. So if I say, Alexa, send me chocolate chip cookies, guarantee you Amazon's going to send a Whole Foods brand of chocolate chip cookies to
Correct.
me.
Yes, that is correct.
But what if a company that makes gourmet chocolate chip cookies could buy that word or that phrase or that Alexa command and basically own that?
That's a really good question. So as marketers, we know that everybody has their price.
Right.
Okay. So everything's for sale for the right price. Okay.
Sure.
And, looking at the skills when they first came out, if you look at the skill store, you go to Amazon.com, you drop down on Alexa skills, you can see this it looks like an iOS store, and it's got the picks and stuff like that. And I looked at the scroller and what was getting really big, and I was thinking, oh, they're selling ads on the top of their app store or skill store for what they are worth, so that they can pitch certain products and stuff.
Sure.
I was wrong. That's not true. They're not selling it right now.
Okay.
In the future, they could, but right now, those spots on their app store are not for sale.
Okay.
I was shocked to find that out. How do I know that? Ask me how I know that.
Please, how do you know that?
So I was in November of last year. Amazon called me up and said, I want to have a meeting with you. It was just one-on-one meeting. So I really didn't know what the meeting was about. He said, yeah, we want to talk about marketing. I'm like, I could talk about marketing. Sure, I'll have a meeting with you, 30 minutes, And he had a real, his name at Amazon.com email address. So I'm like, okay, this is a real person from real Amazon calling me. So, and then so we go through this whole meeting, and he wants to talk about promoting one of my skills. Okay, and this is the whole cork ornaments thing where they needed to promote some holiday themed skills.
Okay.
And so we went through, and we had the meeting, and I was like, and he's like, and I was like, okay, so what do you mean by marketing? He's like, well, we want to feature on the front page of our store. I'm like, really? I'm like, oh, those aren't paid ads like that I'm seeing all over your front thing. He's like, no, the staff picks really are staff picks, and you are my staff pick, and I want to put you.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And that's the first row.
Yeah.
Is staff
That's
picks.
big time.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, those aren't for sale? He goes, no, they're not.
Oh my gosh. What a
He didn't want any money. He did not want a single penny from me.
Oh my goodness.
He wanted me to make 20 changes to the skill to make it something, nice, that he could present.
Right.
But he did not want a single penny from me.
Oh my gosh. Now that's probably going to change at some point.
Let's make this a prediction show. So yes.
Yes.
So, but the way that they do, but they are also very, very aware of how Google does things and how Google got to where they are today.
Right.
And it wasn't by serving up ads. It was by serving up the best customer experience and keeping that pure. And Facebook, if you look at Facebook, they've also followed the same thing. If you put up an ad on Facebook and it gets a bunch of inappropriate or it gets a bunch of negative clicks on it, not a frowny face. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about somebody saying, hide this ad. Right. Okay, going through the trouble, they won't show your ad anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a public information. I'm not sharing some secret thing. I don't work at Facebook, so it's not like I would know anything private. But yeah, everybody's kind of following that model of customer first.
Right. No, I understand. So with that in mind, if it's customer first type thing, can you kind of control Alexa to talk about your brand, your company, your product? Hey, Alexa, talk about Marketing Made Great podcast. Well, actually, there's a skill now you can do that. But anyway, it'll bring it up in your daily flash review. But I'm just saying, can companies use that Alexa command or Google Home to do that kind of marketing as well?
I would say today no.
Okay.
But I do want to talk about that in that we're so SEO obsessed, and SEO is super hard to do. Okay. Right. Okay. Sure. But I do want to talk about that. I want to talk about going back to riding that mobile wave, we went through a phase where there were no apps in the App Store.
Right.
And then now there's an app for that.
Right.
And I see that same wave coming through on Alexa because they are pushing skills so hard. I think as a small business owner, I think it is in your best interest. If you have a mobile app, if you have a website, you also need to have an Alexa skill.
Okay.
And I'm pitching being on every platform.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you talking about omni-channel approach where you go across everything?
Omni-channel.
It's a buzzword I've heard.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
You need to be on every platform. Gone are the days where you say, I'm not going to be on that platform because that's going to drive people to my website and order on my website. Right. I mean, let's get real now. If you have a product you want to sell, you have to sell on Amazon as one of your channels to sell on. You might make less profit than orders that come direct through your website, and you do some interesting things in the fulfillment or whatever marketing tricks you have to try to drive people back to your website so you can maximize your revenue. I totally get that.
Right.
But as marketers, let's look at every viable channel that we can be on as a marketing channel.
Okay. So with that in mind, not only is there an Alexa, but there's now an Echo Show, which now brings in a whole new dimension to that voice command, from video to a whole new thing. So I know you've done a Alexa skill called Running Close, which is on Echo Show. And I got to tell you, when I saw that was utterly amazing, and it caused a train wreck in my brain, thinking about how many other applications that could be used for in that basic format that you had. Now, I know you've evolved that. You've bolstered it up a little bit because you're now, I understand, in the running for some contest at Amazon. What is that called?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
Oh.
I'm a top 10 finalist in the Alexa multimodal contest.
Absolutely.
And I'm really excited to be a finalist, a top 10 finalist out of 430 entries. It's an international contest. Yeah.
And if you have an Echo Show, you need to say, Alexa, running clothes. Is that the command?
Alexa, launch running clothes. Okay. And if you're listening to this in front of your Alexa, I probably just triggered it. so usually before we say anything, I usually say, okay, make sure you mute your Alexas before you listen to my podcast.
Right.
We should probably do, like a little warning or something.
I understand that. So what I thought was interesting about the running clothes skill that you developed was what it does. It brings in a lot of other different data. So if you would kind of share just a little bit about the overview of what this skill does on Alexa Show.
Oh, okay, excellent.
Alexa.
Well, actually, if we go back, go back to the cork ornament story, this like holiday story thing when I was first approached to be featured on Amazon, the protocol, the syntax, I don't know what you call it. They call it Alexa Presentation Language, APL, had just come out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The day before he called me.
Okay.
And then he was like, talked about the changes he wanted to see to get it featured. And he said it would be really nice to have if it was Alexa Presentation Language. And so that was the majority of the work that I did to get onto the front page in the first place for cork ornaments. And I have one of the cork ornaments is almost, if it's not number one, number two, one of the top, no, not top, but it is one of the first skills to ever get approved that uses that Alexa, the Echo Show that is screen enabled. Yeah, so that one was enabled back in November 30th. That one.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, and that was the first one that got approved. It was like
fantastic
because I know this because I was on the forum. They give you documentation. It's not 100% correct. They kind of like they throw out some beta documentation out there. It's not. So I worked with a guy over Thanksgiving break. And we kind of got on a forum. We kind of started chatting, and we kind of figured out the bug in the code that was provided in the sample code. And then we both resubmitted our skills and got them approved.
Oh wow, very cool.
Yeah, so I know I know there was a bug in the initial documentation, and then
very nice.
Yeah, and then so I'm really sure I'm the first one that ever did an APL skill.
Okay.
And then so let's talk about running clothes. Running clothes is developed for me. Okay. Yeah. So they always say, write what you know, right? So let's see. I trained for the New York City Marathon last year.
On purpose, by the way.
Okay, that's a good distinction. Yes. So that meant I ran 5 days a week, 35 miles a week.
Oh my gosh.
So that's
Bless
a lot.
you.
And they're all outdoor runs.
Right.
Okay. So I've got it. It was getting painful every day for me to have to check the weather and then figure out what to wear.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
So as a runner, you want to be properly layered. Okay,
right.
For these runs, you have to dress 20 degrees lower than what it really is outside.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of the rule of thumb.
Okay.
Okay, so if it's 70 degrees, you have to dress for 50-degree weather.
Okay.
Okay, and so you've got to do some sort of calculate. You got to look at the weather. What is the weather, and then subtract 20 degrees, and then the other factors are it's cloudy, windy, whatever, the humidity's at this level, and then kind of take into all that account, and you're running a little algorithm in your head by the end of it to figure out, do I wear a short sleeve shirt or a long sleeve shirt? Do I wear shorts or pants that day, right?
Right.
So I did this every single day, basically, of my life, to train for this New York Marathon, and I was thinking, there's got to be an easier way of doing this. So I was like, okay, I'll just write a skill, and it does the whole thing for me. And I just say, Alexa, launch running clothes. And that's it. And I just, let's just make this a one-step shot instead of me, killing myself, like doing this every single day.
All right. Well, it does more than just ladies too, right? It does men as well, right?
You do have to pick a gender, yes.
Okay.
But now it remembers your gender, and you don't have to tell it male or female every single time. You just say, yes, I want the same thing, but based on the current weather.
So as a marathon runner, training and keeping track of content or your runs and so forth to track progress and so forth, surely your Alexa skill can't do that too, can it?
You can log your last run.
Okay.
Okay, so that was one of the enhancements I made when I became a top 10 finalist, is that you could log your last run, and then they can recall your last run.
Okay.
But more importantly, if you think that the clothing recommendation it gave you was too hot or too cold, you can input that into Alexa. It remembers that. We're using a little bit of machine learning.
Okay.
And then next time it will adjust the recommendation just slightly to try to make it good for you, because we all have our personal preferences.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah.
Okay. So if you had to see into the future, where do you see voice headed?
So it last year, actually 2017, not even last year, but in 2017, Alexa voice in
Right.
the U.S. market alone was a $1.4 billion industry.
Oh my gosh.
So that's not a small number. I mean, I
No,
want
it's
to
not.
be in charge of a $1.4 billion, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
so we're predicting for 2022, actually 2022, 4 years from now, 3 years from now, we're predicting this to be a $40 billion market.
Oh my goodness.
So calculate the CAGR on that.
Right. High math I can't do.
I mean, the trajectory prediction is
It's
a
insane.
mountain. I mean,
So for a company, no matter what its size, it should definitely be looking at voice in some shape or form.
if you thought that the mobile phone and you have an app on mobile phone, you thought the mobile phone thing was not going to go anywhere. All right, jump on the voice bandwagon.
Okay, so if you had to give a business owner or a CMO or a VP of marketing 2 bits of advice about voice, what would it be?
Ooh, 2 bits of advice about voice. Think about how you can integrate voice into your product today. Does your company have some sort of voice component? For example, this is huge with senior citizens, right? So, I had somebody contact me yesterday, and they're working with senior citizens, and I was like, this is the perfect use case for this. You don't have to teach. They can't see the screen. Okay, their eyes are bad. Is what I learned 15 years ago, right? I mean, I learned this over a decade ago. This is the killer app for that market. When the iPad came out, that was the killer device for the senior citizen market because the screen was bigger.
Sure.
And you could see things on it. So
All
this is even better than the iPad
Okay.
because there is no screen.
True.
So there's less training involved.
Right. Exactly. It's what, as you said earlier, it's part of what we do and learn right from the beginning of life.
And we're always thinking, omni-channel. We're always talking about frictionless.
Right.
How is this frictionless? And what can you do with your product today to integrate with Alexa to make your product frictionless? So I'm looking at conference call providers right now. I'm tongue-tied now. I'm sorry. I'm looking at conference calling providers right now. And now it's to the point you have an Alexa set up in your conference room. You say, Alexa, start my conference call. Okay?
Wow.
How many times have we sat in front of a Polycom punching in 20 digits, and you get one wrong, you got to start over again, and then you want to cry, okay, in the middle of your meeting.
Right.
And what's the biggest friction? What's holding you back from giving your great presentation is you and that Polycom.
Right. Good point. Okay.
So that's one bit. The other bit is, how is Alexa a marketing channel for you?
Okay.
And think about that use case. Are people actually buying things on Alexa? The survey actually says no. We're not actually using it. And believe it or not, Amazon, they could use their advertising money to brainwash us into anything, right?
Of course.
But they've got to be smart about it. They're pushing adoption versus pushing their own agenda. So they could have made a bunch of commercials that say, oh yeah, buy all your stuff on Alexa now, you know, and it is a frictionless way of buying things on their channel. Okay. Right. So that's they really haven't gone down that path. Right. They've really gone down the, how am I going to make your life a little bit better? Smart home, they've talked about. Google Home, they are huge on smart home. Turn off my lights, turn on my lights. How long is it going to take me to get to work? What's the traffic or something like that? They've really spent a lot of money advertising the benefits. So right now they're in the buy an Alexa phase. We're in the early stages of adoption. So they make plenty of money from you buying the Alexa. Okay?
So wait a minute, they're brainwashing us now?
So
later
that's what
easier?
advertising is. That's what propaganda is. That's what we do as marketers. Isn't that our job?
That's true.
that's okay. The secrets of marketing right here on the Marketing Made Great podcast. I mean, isn't that what we? That's
true.
we are.
That's true.
That is my job as a marketer.
Absolutely.
Propaganda.
Right.
I'll admit it. Okay.
Well, Caroline, I got to say, this was great having you on the show today. And again, thanks for stopping by, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk soon.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's the end of our part one with our conversation with Caroline Dunn about voice as the next frontier. Tune in next week as Caroline goes into a great deal of detail about how to begin to create these Alexa skills and bring you and your company into that great new frontier called voice. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. If you want more details about today's show and the resources mentioned, go to www.csmediagroup.com/podcast. Please be sure to send us your comments about the show and follow the link in the show notes to give us your suggestions for future show topics. With your help, we'll continue to only get better. Now, you can contact us directly with your topics at podcasttopics@csmediagroup.com as well if you'd like. Be sure right now to stop everything and subscribe to the show in iTunes or on your favorite podcast source so you never miss an episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. While you're there, write us a positive review if you like the show. Also, we're going to ask that you spread the word to your friends about this podcast by visiting us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram with all your comments. Now, when you're posting, be sure to use our hashtag #MarketingMadeGreat when posting so we can add to the discussion online and all the social media platforms. Now, our show is produced in our studios located in Atlanta, Georgia's premier business accelerator, Atlanta Tech Park. I'm your host, Mark Traeger, and I want to thank you so much again for taking the time to listen to this week's episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show.